Hey y'all, I'm Emma Grace McConnell, and come with me for the story of From Farts to Carts, a quick glimpse at the full story of the beef cattle industry. The beef cattle industry is widely known and very important to the United States economy. The beef cattle industry is composed of many different subunits, one of those being cow-calf. These are an example of a cow-calf operation. It's considered cow-calf because they are cows with calves currently on their side drinking milk. And these calves are considered your stalk grounder or back grounder calves because they were just recently weaned and are on forage, as you can see, but they're also being supplemented with some grain. And all these behind me would be considered your finishing or feedlot steers. However, here in Georgia, we don't have your traditional dry lot feedlot, and so although they are on a grass pasture, as you see, they are also getting supplemented with a grain diet, and they'll be sent off for harvesting when they're at their harvest weight. Kind of differing on the finishing stage from that of the cow-calf and the stalk grounder back grounder, where they transition from a cow-calf to a stalk grounder back grounder when they're weaned. These are transitioned depending on the average wean weight within the group, and then they're also transitioned to when they're finished based on the sex of the group, whether they're heifers or steers, whether they're intact like bulls, and what breed they are, as well as how heavy of a grain you have them on. But one of the biggest misconceptions that the beef cattle industry has is about their contribution to greenhouse gases. When looking at greenhouse gases, we have three major ones of concern, that being carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Now, when looking at greenhouse gas emissions, transportation accounts 28% or more of the greenhouse gases every year in the United States. So the 3.7% from cows do not compare. Now, out of those three, methane accounts for about 11%. Now, that's why beef cattle get such a bad rap, is because they mainly produce methane, which is holds 28 times more radiation than that of CO2, but has a shorter half-life, so it doesn't stay in the atmosphere as long. Now, when looking at the beef cattle industry, most of the methane that they produce is labeled as enteric, meaning that it was made from the fermentation of the feedstuffs within the rumen, and then it is either eructated out or burped or farted or pooped out. When diving deeper into the beef cattle industry and the amount of methane that comes from them, the cow-calf phase tends to have more of methane production than that of your back grounder, stalk grounder, or your feedlot. And we believe that's due to their forage diet. This forage, whether it being fresh grass or hay, has more acetate in it, which is a volatile fatty acid. This acetate allows for more hydrogen to be able to use to reduce methane than if they were on a concentrate diet. Now, one thing I forgot to mention was that the beef cattle industry is horizontally integrated, meaning that cattle tend to go from farm to farm, going from different phases. So one farm will have a cow-calf operation, one will have your stalk grounder, back grounder, then you'll have another farm for your feedlot, and then they'll go elsewhere to be harvested. Although this is a smaller trailer than what would be used out west to haul cattle, it is what is used here in the southeast. It'll hold about 40 calves if they're small, or about 20 full-size cows. Now, what's usually used in the industry, especially out west, is you'll have a taller double-decker, which will hold more cows and is usually hauled behind an 18-wheeler, as it is a bigger, heavier trailer. Now, you might be thinking, a lot of greenhouse gas emissions come from hauling these cattle from place to place. However, that is not true. Trailering these animals only accounts for 10% of greenhouse gas emissions, and it is exactly 0.088 coming from transporting these animals. And for the last part of our story, we talk about carts, or the meat that you put in a consumer's cart. The issue that we have with it is that we use styrofoams and plastics to wrap the meat. However, as you can see, packers and processing plants do their best to use a minimum amount of packaging, and so you can see there's very little extra around the edges of this piece of meat. as well as here. So there's not as much contributing to pollution. So next time you think about the cattle industry and their greenhouse gas emissions, remember that they only contribute 3.7% and that cow farts are not killing the planet.